The impossible part was that a small old passbook ended up worth more than anything else in the house. A few days earlier it was still sitting in my room and now it was gone. It involved my dad. There was one number written inside it. Just one. And the account it belonged to was still active. I kept wondering if I misunderstood something. The math did not line up in my head, and I had no idea what that meant yet. I will explain how it started. My grandfather died last year. Quietly, no drama. He was already in his late 70s, and everyone said it was expected. We were close, but not in the way people talk about in speeches. He was calm. He listened more than he talked. When I visited him, we mostly sat. Sometimes he would tell me small things about his past, usually halfway through a story, then stop. That was just how he was. A few weeks before he passed, he called me over. Just me. That alone felt unusual. He handed me a thin envelope. Inside was a small bank passbook, old paper, worn edges. My name was written inside in his handwriting. He told me to keep it safe. He did not explain much, just said it was something he started a long time ago. He said not to tell anyone yet. Then he smiled and said I would know what to do when the time came. To be honest, I did not know what to think. I thanked him, hugged him, and went home. I put the passbook in my drawer and did not touch it for a while. Life went on. Work, bills, family stuff. After he passed, things got busy fast. Funeral arrangements, relatives coming over. Everyone talking at once. I forgot about the passbook for a bit. A couple of weeks later, my dad was in my room looking for some documents. I was at work. I did not think much of it. He had done that before. Later that evening, he asked me what the little booklet in my drawer was. I told him it was something Grandpa gave me. He frowned, picked it up, flipped through it, then laughed, not loudly. Just a short, breathy laugh. He said, "This passbook is trash. Banks do not even use these anymore." I told him Grandpa said it was important. My dad shook his head and said older people cling to useless things. He said there was probably nothing in it, maybe a few hundred left over. He said I should not get my hopes up over something outdated. Something about that did not sit right with me. I asked him where it was. He said he threw it away with some old papers. That was when my stomach dropped. I did not say anything right away. I just stood there. Part of me wanted to argue. Another part felt stupid for even caring. I told myself maybe he was right. Maybe it was nothing. Just sentimental paper. But then I remembered the number inside. And the date. And the way my grandfather looked at me when he handed it over. That night I could not sleep. I kept replaying the moment. I kept thinking about the fact that my name was written in his handwriting. Not printed. Not stamped. Written. In the morning, before work, I went through the trash bins outside. Slowly. Carefully. It was gone. I felt embarrassed standing there. And also uneasy. I knew I could go to the bank without the passbook. At least to ask. But part of me hesitated. I kept thinking, what if my dad was right? What if I looked foolish? What if it really was nothing? Still, I could not let it go. That afternoon I took a longer lunch break, and I went to the bank. The bank branch was one I had walked past 100 times but never really noticed. Glass front, quiet inside. I almost turned around at the door. I remember thinking I could just go back to work and forget the whole thing. Pretend it never happened. But I went in. I waited in line, holding nothing. No passbook, no documents. Just my ID in my pocket. When it was my turn, I told the teller I wanted to ask about an old account. I said it belonged to my grandfather and that my name might be connected to it. She asked for his full name and date of birth. I gave them. Then she asked for my ID. I slid it across the counter and immediately felt self-conscious, like I was wasting her time. She typed for a while, longer than I expected. Then she stopped and looked at the screen again. She did not say anything right away. She asked me to wait and picked up the phone. Made a short call, very quiet. Then she told me the branch manager would like to speak with me. That caught me off guard. I followed her to a small office near the back. The manager was already there, standing up as I walked in. He introduced himself and asked me to sit. His tone was polite but focused. Not casual. He asked how I was related to my grandfather. I told him he was my maternal grandfather. He nodded, asked when he passed. I answered. He checked something on his screen again. Then he asked if I had the passbook with me. I told him no. I said it had been thrown away. He paused for a moment. He said that was unfortunate, but not a problem. That line stayed with me. He explained that the account was still active, that it had not been touched in years. He said it was set up under a specific type of savings structure that was no longer common but still fully valid. He said my grandfather had listed me as the sole beneficiary. I asked him what that meant exactly. He said it meant the funds belonged to me now. I remember nodding like I understood, even though my head felt light. He slid a paper across the desk. It showed the account summary. Just numbers, no decoration. There was one figure that stood out. The same one I remembered from the passbook. I stared at it for a few seconds longer than normal. I asked him to confirm it. He did. I asked if there was some mistake. He shook his head and said the balance had been verified multiple times over the years. He told me my grandfather had been depositing into it quietly for decades. Small amounts. Consistent, never withdrawing. He said interest did the rest. I sat back in the chair. I did not feel excited. I felt confused, and suddenly very aware of the fact that my dad had called it trash. The manager explained what would happen next. Paperwork. Verification. A short waiting period. Nothing dramatic, just process. I nodded along, still trying to keep my voice steady. I asked a few basic questions, mostly to buy myself time. How long it would take. What documents they needed. Whether I needed to come back again. He answered everything calmly. At one point he said something that stuck with me. He said my grandfather was very deliberate. That was his word. Deliberate. He said the account had clear instructions, no ambiguity, no shared access, no room for interpretation. That made me swallow hard. I thanked him and stood up. He walked me to the door of the office himself. Before I left, he told me I could contact him directly if I had any questions. He handed me his card. I took it and slipped it into my wallet without really looking at it. When I stepped back outside, the noise of the street felt louder than before. Cars, people talking. Everything felt slightly off, like I was half a step behind my own body. I went back to work and tried to act normal. That did not last long. I kept replaying my dad's voice in my head. The way he laughed. The way he said older people cling to useless things. I tried to tell myself he did not know, that he was not trying to hurt me. Still, it sat there, heavy. That evening my dad asked me how my day was. I said it was fine. He asked if I was still thinking about the passbook thing. I shrugged and said not really. I did not trust myself to say more. I was afraid my voice would change, or that I would say something I could not take back. Later that night I opened my drawer again. The empty space stared back at me. I realized something then. Even without the money, even if the account had been empty, it was not his to throw away. That thought did not feel angry. It felt final. I started thinking about boundaries. Not in a dramatic way. Just practical ones. What I shared, what I kept to myself, what I let other people handle for me. The bank manager had said everything would move slowly. That suited me. I was not ready for anything fast. I needed time to think, to sit with it, to decide how much of this story was actually mine to tell. For now I said nothing, and that silence was a choice. I did not tell anyone what the bank said, not my dad, not my mom, not even my sister. I told myself I was just waiting for things to be official, but that was not the whole truth. I needed space, the kind of space where thoughts can settle without outside voices shaping them. A few days passed. The bank sent an email asking me to come back in to complete the next step. Just standard language, nothing alarming. I scheduled it for the following week and deleted the email from my phone so I would not keep rereading it. At home things went on as usual, dinner at the same time, the TV on in the background, my dad talking about work, small complaints, nothing related to Grandpa, nothing about the passbook. That silence felt strange. I kept watching my dad in small moments, not in a suspicious way, more like noticing things I had never paid attention to before, how he decided what was important, how quickly he dismissed things he did not value, how confident he was when he spoke, even when he was guessing. I wondered if Grandpa knew this would happen. That thought stayed with me. One evening my mom mentioned that Grandpa had always been careful with money. She said he kept records of everything, old notebooks, envelopes with dates written on them. She laughed and said it was probably a generational thing. I said nothing. Later that night I checked the bank card the manager had given me again. His name, his direct line. It felt strange having that kind of access. Like I had stepped into something I was not prepared for. I started thinking about the number again. Not what it could buy, just what it meant. Years, patience, intent. My grandfather had started that account before I was even born, before he knew what kind of person I would be, and he still chose me. That part was harder to sit with than the money. A few days later my dad brought up the passbook again, almost casually. He said he hoped I was not upset about it. He said he did me a favor by clearing out junk. He said clutter holds people back. I nodded. I said it was fine, but inside something shifted. I realized this was not about money anymore. It was about control, about who gets to decide what matters, about assumptions made without asking. That realization did not come with anger. It came with clarity. When the day came to go back to the bank, I did not tell anyone where I was going. I left work early. I sat in my car for a few minutes before going inside, just breathing, letting myself feel nervous without judging it. Inside, the same manager greeted me, same calm tone, same focused attention. He walked me through the documents, beneficiary confirmation, identity checks, timelines. He explained everything like it was routine. For him, it probably was. For me, it felt like crossing a line I could not uncross. When I signed my name, my hand shook slightly. Not because I was excited, because I knew things would change. After that meeting, nothing happened right away. That part surprised me. I think some part of my brain expected a switch to flip. For life to feel different the moment I walked out of the bank. It did not. I went back to my car, drove home, stopped for groceries like I always did. At home, my dad was already there, sitting at the table looking at his phone. He asked what took me so long. I said work ran late. He nodded and did not question it. That was the pattern. He rarely questioned things once he decided they were unimportant. The bank emailed again a few days later. Just an update. Everything was moving forward. There was a mandatory holding period, some compliance steps. They needed to verify a few historical records because the account was old. None of it sounded urgent. Still, I felt a low-level tension that never fully went away. I started keeping certain things to myself. Small things at first. Passwords, documents, plans, not out of spite, more out of caution. I realized I had been too open before, assuming everyone would handle my things the way I would. That assumption was gone. One night at dinner, my dad started talking about money, about how hard it was these days, about how people expect handouts instead of earning their way. He was not talking about me directly, but it felt close enough. I listened, chewed my food, said nothing. At one point he mentioned Grandpa. He said Grandpa was naive with money, too trusting, too sentimental. He said people like that get taken advantage of. I felt my jaw tighten, but I did not correct him. Later, alone in my room, I replayed the bank manager's words again. Deliberate. Clear instructions, no ambiguity. Those words mattered. They contradicted everything my dad was saying, and they came from someone with no emotional stake in it. That mattered too. A week later, the manager called me directly. He said everything had cleared. The funds would be transferred to a new account in my name within a few days. He asked if I had any questions. I did not. After the call, I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I thought about telling my dad. I imagined the conversation in my head. Different versions, calm ones, defensive ones. None of them felt right. Every version ended with him reframing it somehow, minimizing it, claiming it was obvious, or saying he knew all along. I realized something then. I did not want validation. I wanted distance, so I said nothing. When the transfer completed, I checked the balance once. Just once. Then I closed the app. I did not feel relief. I felt responsibility, a quiet weight settling in. That night my dad asked me if I wanted help managing my finances. He said he had experience. He said it would be smart. I told him I had it covered. He looked surprised, not offended, just surprised. And that told me everything I needed to know. After that conversation, things shifted in small ways. My dad did not push. He did not bring it up again. Instead, he started offering advice indirectly. Comments at dinner, things he read online, stories about people who lost money because they trusted the wrong systems. I listened without engaging. I realized he was trying to stay relevant without asking permission. That was new. I kept my routine steady: work, home, sleep. I did not make any big changes, no purchases, no announcements. The money stayed where it was. I wanted to see how long I could let it sit without it changing me. What changed was how I spoke. I stopped explaining myself so much. When my dad asked where I was going, I gave simple answers. When he offered opinions, I acknowledged them without agreeing. It was subtle, but it created space. One evening, my mom asked if everything was okay between me and my dad. She said we felt quieter. I told her things were fine, just busy. She nodded and accepted that. I wondered if she knew more than she said. A few days later, my dad mentioned the trash day again. He laughed and said he still could not believe how much junk Grandpa kept. He said cleaning it out was a relief. He looked at me when he said it like he expected a reaction. I did not give him one. That silence stretched longer than either of us expected. He changed the subject. Later that night, I thought about the passbook itself. The physical thing, the paper, the ink, the fact that it was gone. I realized I was no longer angry about it. I had moved past that part. What bothered me now was how easily something meaningful had been dismissed without a question. That was the real loss. The bank manager emailed again. Just a final confirmation. Ever. My thing was complete. The account was fully under my control. No further action needed. I read the email twice and archived it. I did not feel like celebrating. I felt settled. I started thinking about the future in practical terms. Housing, work, independence. Not escape, just autonomy. The kind that does not need permission. I also thought about my grandfather, about how he never raised his voice, how he let people show him who they were, how he planned quietly, carefully. Without needing credit, I understood him better now. That understanding did not come with warmth. It came with resolve. I did not confront my dad. I did not explain. I did not correct the story he told himself. I simply stopped handing him pieces of my life to manage. And once I did that, I noticed something. The pressure eased. Not all at once, but enough. The first real change happened quietly. I found an apartment listing on a random evening, not because I was planning to move right away, but because I was curious. 1 bedroom, nothing fancy, close to work. I saved it without thinking much about it. That became a habit. I started saving listings, not every day, just when something caught my eye. I did not tell anyone. It felt like a private thought and I wanted to keep it that way. At home, my dad seemed relaxed again, more like his old self. He joked, complained about traffic, asked if I wanted tea. It would have been easy to believe nothing had changed. But something had. I noticed how often he assumed things would stay the same, that I would be around, that I would ask before making decisions. That access was automatic. I stopped correcting those assumptions. One evening, he asked me to look over some paperwork for him. Nothing important. Just forms. I said I could not that night. I had plans. He asked what kind of plans. I paused. Then I said I had errands. He accepted that answer, but his eyes lingered on me for a second longer than usual. It was the first time I felt that boundary land. Not with force, with confusion. A few days later, I met with a financial advisor the bank recommended. Neutral, professional, no history with my family. We talked about options, long-term planning, risk, responsibility. He did not tell me what to do. He asked what I wanted my life to look like in 10 years. I did not have a clean answer, but I had a direction. When I got home, my dad asked where I had been. I told him I met someone about work-related stuff. That was true enough. He nodded and moved on. That night, I thought about how often I had filtered myself before, how many details I used to offer without being asked. I realized I had done that to keep things smooth. Smooth came at a cost. I started preparing quietly, not in secret, just privately. I gathered documents, organized files, set up things in my name. Small steps that added up. My mom noticed first. She asked if I was thinking about moving out. Her tone was gentle, curious, not accusing. I said maybe, not right away. But eventually, she smiled and said that was normal. She did not mention it to my dad, at least not right away. A week later, my dad brought it up himself. He said he heard I might be thinking of moving. He asked why, not sharply, just direct. I told him I wanted more independence. He laughed and said I already had plenty. I did not argue. I just said I wanted to try. That answer seemed to unsettle him. He said we were a family, that we shared things, that moving out was unnecessary. I listened, then I said I understood, and left it there. That was new too. After that conversation, my dad became more attentive, not warmer, just more present. He asked questions he had never asked before. Where I was going, when I would be back, whether I needed help with anything. None of it was aggressive. It almost sounded supportive. But it came with an edge I could not ignore, like he was trying to reinsert himself before something slipped. I kept my responses neutral. Yes. No. Not sure yet. A few days later, he sat me down at the kitchen table. He said he wanted to talk. He said he felt like I was pulling away, that I was keeping things from him. He said families should not have secrets. I listened all the way through. Then I said I was not keeping secrets. I said I was just handling some things on my own. That distinction mattered to me. He disagreed. He said independence was fine, but transparency was better. He said I owed him that much. After everything he had done, I felt the familiar urge to explain myself rise up, and then fade. I told him I appreciated what he had done, and that I was still allowed to make decisions without reporting them. That was the first time I saw him struggle for words, not angry, not loud, just unsure. He said he did not want me to make mistakes. He said money changes people. He said he had seen it happen before. I noticed he never asked if I needed help, only if I might fail. That told me something. I did not bring up the account. I did not correct any assumptions. I let his concern exist without feeding it. A few weeks later, I signed the lease. I did not tell my dad until it was done. When I did, he went quiet. Then he asked when I had decided. I said it happened over time. He asked why I had not involved him. I said I needed to do it myself. He nodded slowly. He said he hoped I knew what I was doing. I said I hoped so too. That answer ended the conversation. Moving out was uneventful. Boxes, trips back and forth. My mom helped quietly. She hugged me longer than usual. She told me she was proud of me. She did not explain why. My dad shook my hand, not a hug, a handshake. It felt formal, clean. At the new place, things were quiet. Too quiet at first. I sat on the floor the first night because I had not set up the furniture yet. I ate takeout and listened to the hum of the fridge. I felt nervous and calm, both at once. I checked the account one more time that night. Not to admire it, just to confirm it was still there. Still real it was. I closed the app and put my phone down. I thought about the passbook again. About how something small had revealed something big. About how easily it could have all gone unnoticed if I had accepted someone else's dismissal. I did not feel triumphant. I felt grounded. Life settled into a rhythm after that. Work, commute, evenings that belonged only to me. I learned how quiet sounds when it is not filled by other people's expectations. At first I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for guilt, for regret. Neither came. My dad called less often. When he did, the conversations stayed surface level. Weather, work, family updates. He never mentioned the passbook, never mentioned the account. I did not either. That silence became permanent without being agreed on. Once he joked that I must be doing well if I could afford my own place. I laughed and said I was managing. That was true. He did not press. I noticed something in myself during those calls. I was calmer, not guarded, just steady. A few months later, I went through some of my grandfather's old things that my mom had saved for me. Not valuables, just notebooks, receipts, small notes in the margins of newspapers. I saw patterns, dates, tiny numbers written again and again. Nothing flashy, just consistency. That was when I understood the gift fully. It was not the money, it was the intention. He had planned for a future where I would need leverage. Not to win, just to stand on my own feet without asking permission. He never explained that. He did not have to. I did not tell my dad about that realization. I did not need to. Our relationship did not break, it changed shape. We see each other on holidays, birthdays, family dinners. He still gives advice. I still listen politely. But I no longer hand over decisions for approval. He noticed. He adjusted. Slowly, one afternoon, Slater, he mentioned Grandpa again. He said he might have misjudged him. Just a little. He did not explain further, neither did I. That was enough. Sometimes I think about the passbook itself, about how close it came to disappearing without a trace, how easily I could have let it go, how different things might have been if I had. That thought does not scare me anymore. It reminds me to pay attention. I still keep my finances private, not secret. Private. That line matters now. When people ask how I managed to move out so smoothly, I give simple answers. Planning, timing, patience. All of those are true. I do not mention the rest. Some things are meant to stay quiet, and some gifts are not meant to be explained.